Hi, world history students. So today I'm coming at you with a very short promise lecture on the decline of the Roman Empire. And this is something that historians still kind of argue about. Did the Roman Empire actually fall, or was it a decline? And I'm pretty sure you can tell from the title of my PowerPoint the way I feel, okay? So as I go through the reasons why Rome fell, keep in mind, this is, I don't even know, can you see it? This is silly putty. I know it looks like a big thing of gum. I swear, it's silly putty, okay? And we're going to keep this kind of in mind as we look at the reasons for the decline of the Roman Empire, okay? One big reason was civil wars, right? So after Marcus Aurelius died, and Marcus Aurelius was one of our good emperors, or what we call the good emperors. Yes, the historians actually call them good and bad emperors, no joke, okay? There was a lot of confusion, and that's because he didn't really have an heir who was particularly assigned to the throne. His son ends up taking over, and it's a really big mess, and you probably have seen this if you watched Gladiator. Now, granted, not everything that happened in Gladiator is historically correct, but man, that Colosseum with the Hippogeum, am I right? Am I right? Come on. Okay? But anyways, because we didn't really know who was supposed to be in charge, there was a lot of power struggle, and it's something that happens often, and we'll see this as a historical trend, historical pattern. If there's not someone who's already placed in line, then there's some serious problems with the power, right? It's just normal. Like everyone's like, hey, now's the time. I'm going to come and have a coup against the government. And so there was civil war throughout the Roman Empire. To make matters worse, there's always been issues between the classes, right? The patricians and the plebeians, our upper class and our lower class, and the rest of the population were basically fighting against our upper class leaders because they didn't have the exact same interests as them. And this happened throughout the Roman Empire, but it really comes to a head when you don't have somebody who can control, I suppose, the nation, okay? There are other reasons, though, for the fall of the Roman Empire, okay? There was political instability, not just civil wars between warring patricians trying to take over. There is, there's a lot of turnover in leaders. So there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no consistency within the leadership, right? So remember, Rome had been, at the original founding of Rome, after they kicked out the last Etruscan king, they had been a republic. And from the time of Caesar onward, they had been an empire that had a ruling emperor. And so they were technically like a monarchy, right? Well, unfortunately, the monarchy did not survive. And there were Severin, not several. It's not supposed to say several. It always tells me update to several. And I'm like, no, it's not several. It's Severin, a family of rulers who took control of the military government for some time. And just to kind of give you an idea as how inconsistent, did I say inconsistent? I don't even know what I said, guys. I'm just going to move along. The inconsistency of this. In 50 years' time, nearly 22 emperors took the throne by their military strength alone, okay? Could you imagine if in 50 years we had 22 presidents, okay? That's what I'm talking about, that executive power that leads to complete instability, okay? And I just put that on there. Yes, none of them knew how to rule a huge empire. They were very weak and very corrupt rulers, okay? And you have to remember, Rome had grown to a huge height and had basically conquered most of the known world. And if you don't have someone who can manage resources wisely, you're in trouble, okay? Speaking of resources, inflation, okay? I'm sure we know what inflation is by now. I hope so. If not, pay attention, right? Inflation is the rapid increase in prices. So as Roman money declined in value, the whole economic system starts to collapse. Their money was not worth as much, their coinage. I know I have dollar bills on there because that's what I like to see. But their coinage was not worth very much any longer. And if you have a rapid inflation, like hyperinflation, or think back to like or I should say forward since we're in Rome, but like the times of our Germans, right, after World War I, and they had to pay those reparations. And so what did they start doing? Print the money, print the money. That's hyperinflation. Because now if you have more of something, it's worth less. Like, did you know, yeah, sorry, I'm going to take off my wedding ring here. Isn't this beautiful? I know, my husband did well. Did you know that there are, diamonds are actually in great abundance in the world, but the reason why we have, we consider them rare and they're worth so much money is because those that control the diamond industry only release a few, or like a certain quota every year, and they can't release any more, which makes them scarce. Scarcity is what gives us that value. And if you have a lot of money out in circulation, it's going to, or you have nothing to back it up either, it will decline in value, okay? Oh, my favorite, unsuccessful reforms. The Roman people were people of comfort and people of, what do I want to say? Habit, creatures of habit. And they had been polytheistic, borrowing from, borrowing? I guess we'll use that term lightly, borrowing, from the Greeks, their religion, right? So we know that Zeus ends up becoming Jupiter, right? So, you know, like the gods are basically the same. So there's a couple things that happen, all right? This was supposed to, before we get into the religion part, I don't know why I'm mentioning that first. The first one was dividing Rome into Greek-speaking East and Latin-speaking West, okay? This was supposed to be more efficient. It was a very large empire, and Diocletian said, I'm kind of smart sometimes, and I think that if I took the East and I gave the West to somebody else, and we'll talk about why in a second, why it's not so hot in the West, then we will have less of an empire to run, right? And we can just decide, or we can just work together kind of on our issues, and it won't be that big of a deal. It was supposed to be more efficient so that we could split up that very large empire, okay? So, like I said, he ruled the East. He also tried to impose price controls, which didn't work. I mean, if it's like, hey, you can only sell a loaf of bread for this amount of money, and all the vendors go, yeah, right, I'm not going to try and sell the bread for this for this amount of money, it's not going to work. So price controls have to actually be heeded, abided, followed by the people, okay? And then Constantine, right, he changed the Roman religion to Christianity. So like I said, the Roman people, they like their polytheistic religion. And at first he made it an accepted religion. It becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire as well, okay? He enlarged the army and civil services, which was not good because it drained all the money out of the treasury of Rome, okay? Now, Constantine moves over into the east. He stays in the east just like Diocletian had, and that becomes known as Constantinople. Istanbul was Constantinople. No one knows that song, just me. Maybe I'll play it for you guys. Anyways, so that is some of the stuff that he does. And unfortunately, you cannot pay your soldiers if you have a bunch of money that's worthless anyways. And it starts to become a huge vicious cycle, okay? Oh, hey, I totally forgot to put that on there, but I already talked to you about it. Constantinople, New Rome, right? Barbarian attacks, another big theme. The Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Vikings, lots of different barbarians that moved into Rome from the north. Rome had been conquering these, quote-unquote barbarians. In fact, they called them barbarians because they thought they went bar. Like when they talked. Okay, that's all right. It wasn't as sophisticated of a language as Latin. So our Visigoths and our Vikings are moved into Rome from the north, and they soon revolted, and they attacked and sacked Rome, and Rome got sacked multiple times. That means that they literally went in, pillaged and raped and burned, and it was a disaster. And from Engineering an Empire, how we have roads that Romans created. All those roads led right to Rome, right? So it was very easy to find our Romans and take whatever they had left. Did you know the Colosseum actually ended up becoming a refugee center during this time? They weren't having gladiator, huge sellout gladiator fights anymore, because they needed the space for those who had lost their homes in this attack, Okay, this was really the first of many barbarian attacks of lots of people coming down from the north and into Italy. Okay, but my favorite, told you, silly buddy, right? Rapid expansion. So Rome just simply expanded its empire way too quickly without the proper resources to maintain it, okay? So there's a couple things that happen, right, when we have silly putty and we try and expand it, right? So first off, easy to remember, Rome stretched itself too thin, right? It did not have the resources that it needed. However, okay, ready? If you pull hard enough, it becomes 2. See this? Okay? And so Rome ends up becoming, excuse me, 2 parts. And in all honesty, I do not know how this is going to look when I do this, but I hope that it works out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. From the way that I can see myself on here, let's see, I moved this hand, but it goes over there. This then would be the west, and this then would be the east, okay? Rome then becomes divided into 2 parts. West, east, that's what it looks like to me. The western side becomes engulfed in Germanic warfare, loses all central government that Rome had put into place, and this is where the Middle Ages happen, right? The Middle Ages that we know about, that hopefully you've learned about before, okay? Over on the east side, however, Rome continues to flourish under the new capital of Constantinople. This becomes known as the Byzantine Empire, and it's a great Christian empire that also continues during the exact same time as the Dark Middle Ages of Europe, okay? And they used to be part of the exact same empire. So just remember the silly putty, stretch itself too thin and splits into 2, okay? And that is partially, and the biggest reason really, why I consider, sorry, now I'm just going to sit here and play with the silly putty, why I consider the decline in the Roman Empire. Because, yeah, it's not at the same height that it was, but under a very famous guy named Justinian, who you'll learn more about, the Byzantine Empire does continue Roman traditions, okay? That is it. We are finished. I told you it was going to be very short. Please let me know if you have any questions on the decline of the Roman Empire, okay? Thank you so much, guys. I had a good time.